Hi, I'm Kenny Joya. Welcome to another one of my tutorials. In this video, I'm going to show you how to edit JS plugins in Reaper. Now, if you haven't noticed, there's a bunch of JS plugins that come free when you install Reaper. If we go to the effects, we can see right over here are our JS plugins. And there's quite a lot of them. Way too many to go through. But in this video, I want to show you how to edit them, at least in a simple way, so you can improve them for your own personal use. Now, besides the free ones that come with Reaper, we could also install some custom ones made by users. If we go to Google, we could type in Reaper Stash and go down here to JS Effects, and we can see all the user created plugins right over here. And we could search them further right over here. We could type in EQ or delay and find the user created plugins that we could use in Reaper. Now, some of them include an installer, but for others, just go back to Reaper and go to the options menu and choose Show Reaper Resource Path. Then we can find the effects folder, which is where all the JS plugins show up. We just drag it into this folder. And then it'll show up in Reaper. If we go over here and right-click and choose Scan for New Plugins. And then it'll show up in the JS plugins right over here. But in this video, I want to focus on some simple edits to the ones we're using. Like, for example, I tend to use a volume plugin. There's a few of them right over here. Let's choose this one, Volume Pan Smoother, version 5, which is a very simple plugin. We could adjust the volume on it, the pan, and so on. But I may want to set this up to behave a bit differently. Like sometimes I want to use my MIDI keyboard to control the volume. So I click the fader, go to the menu, and choose Learn. Then I would touch the fader on my keyboard, so I can use that fader to control that parameter, like this. But the one problem with that is if I bring the fader up too high, it goes to +12, which for my needs could be too loud. I would prefer if it just goes up to 0. Then I can reduce it right here, but it'll never go above 0. And luckily we can do that with a JS plugin. If I go over here to edit, we can see all the parameters we can adjust with this plugin. But before we change this, I'd recommend creating a copy of our plugin so we don't mess it up. So let's delete this first, and instead select it, right-click it, and choose Edit JS Effects. And that'll open the code just like before, but in a text editor. So now I'm going to select all and copy it. Then we can close it and go down here and right-click and choose Create New JS Effects. We'll give it a name. I'm going to call it Volume Custom and save it. Then we can go over here to edit this plugin, select all and delete, and then paste the code from before. Then we'll scroll to the top and change the name over here. Just going to add custom to that name. Then we can hit Save, which is Control-S on the PC or Command-S on the Mac to save that code. So we can close it, and we can see the name change up here and over here. But we could also rescan it to see that it shows up in our list. So remove it, right-click over here, and choose Scan for New Plugins. And we can see it shows up right here. This is a copy of this plugin. Let's open it up. And now we can edit this one. So the first thing I want to change is right over here with slider 1. It defaults to 0, and it starts at -60 and goes up to 12. let's change the 12 to be 0. Save it, and then close it. And now, at its highest point, it's 0 dB. It won't get any louder, but we can still reduce it right here. So if I use my MIDI keyboard to adjust this, it's never going to go above 0. So for my use, it makes a lot more sense. But we could also change where it defaults to. Maybe we want it to start at -12. We could change that right over here. Starts at 0. We'll change it to -12. Save it. And then by default, it's -12. So we can remove it, add it again, and it's going to start off at -12, but still only go up to 0 or down to -60. We could also change the fine tuning. Right now, it's by 0.1, so we can go up and down by 0.1 dB. We could change it right over here to 1 dB. Save it, close it, and now it only goes to whole numbers, -16, 17, and so on. So if you want it to be more precise, we could change it that way. And we can do the same things for panning and pan lar. Right over here, start at 2, start at 3. So in a very simple way, we can adjust how this plugin works. Let me give you another example. I tend to use a plugin called Tone Generator when I want to create a sine wave to adjust my meters or just to see level on my tracks. But my one problem with it is if I open it up, it starts off with that tone already on. What I prefer is if it started out all the way down, and then I could bring it back up. I don't really need the dry mix, so I want this off as well. And also, the tone defaults to 440 Hertz. Maybe I prefer it to be 1 kilohertz. But before we do this, let's make a copy of that plugin. Select all, and copy it. Let's delete this one. Right-click over here, create new JSFX. I'll name it Tone Generator, 1 kilohertz. Then we'll edit it, select all, and delete it, and then paste the code. Then we'll scroll up and change the name right over here. Tone Generator, 1 kilohertz. Then we can save it and close it. Then go over here and right-click, scan for new plugins, and it shows up right here. Let's edit it, change our tone in slider 3 to 1000, change slider 2 to -120, and the same for slider 1, -120. Then we can save it, and by default, these are down, and this is set up to 1 kilohertz. So if we turn it on, we could slowly bring up this parameter, and we could hear that 1 kilohertz tone. So it's not going to surprise us when we add it. It's going to show up right here, and it doesn't make any noise by default. We have to manually bring it up if we want to hear it. So this is going to apply to any JS plugins in your system, whether they came with REAPER or if you installed them yourself. We could edit them really simply right from here. And like I said, always create a copy first so you can't mess up the original plugin. So that's pretty much it. That's editing JS plugins in REAPER. I hope you learned something, hope you can use it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.